Two bulls give their lives to protect their owner, a 5-year-old girl, from a jaguar attack. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment where you're watching this video from. The sun was setting over the remote cattle station in the Northern Territory, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. 5-year-old Lily Anderson walked barefoot along the dusty path between the paddocks, her small hand clutching a worn stuffed kangaroo. Her blonde pigtails bounced with each step as she hummed a tune her mother had taught her that morning. The station was home to her family. Her father, Tom, managed 2,000 head of cattle across the sprawling property, while her mother, Rebecca, ran the homestead and taught Lily through correspondence school. It was an isolated life. The nearest town was over 200 kilometers away, but it was the only life Lily had ever known. Walking beside her, never more than a meter away, were her two constant companions, Ghost and Shadow, a pair of Brahman bulls that had been on the property since before Lily was born. Ghost was pure white, his hide gleaming in the fading sunlight, while Shadow was dark brown, almost black in certain lights. Both were massive animals, each weighing close to 900 kilograms, with horns that curved upward like ancient weapons. Most people would be terrified to see a small child walking alone with two enormous bulls. But Ghost and Shadow had been Lily's guardians since the day she'd taken her first steps. Tom often joked that the bulls thought they were her parents, the way they watched over her constantly, positioning themselves between her and any potential danger. "Come on, boys," Lily called out in her high, sweet voice. "Let's go see the water tank. Mummy said there might be frogs." The bulls followed, their massive hooves making soft thuds in the red dirt. Ghost walked on her left, Shadow on her right, forming a living barrier around the tiny girl. Their eyes constantly scanned the surrounding bush, alert to any threat. What none of them knew was that they were being watched. In the dense scrub about 50 meters away, a jaguar crouched low to the ground. The big cat was a rare sight in this part of Australia, likely an escaped exotic pet or descendant of one, though no one could say for certain. She was desperate and hungry, having not eaten in 3 days. Her usual prey had become scarce, and she'd been forced to venture closer to human habitation than she normally would. The jaguar's golden eyes fixed on the small human walking between the two bulls. Easy prey, her instincts told her. Young, vulnerable, slow. Lily reached the water tank and peered into the trough, standing on her tiptoes to see over the edge. "I don't see any frogs, Ghost," she said, turning to the white bull. "Maybe they're hiding." Ghost lowered his massive head and gently nuzzled Lily's shoulder, a gesture of affection that would have seemed impossible from such a large, powerful animal. Lily giggled and patted his nose. That's when Shadow sensed it. His ears pricked forward, his nostrils flared, and his entire body went rigid. A low, rumbling sound emerged from deep in his chest. Not quite a moo, but a warning growl that bulls make when they detect predators. Ghost immediately responded, his head snapping up, eyes scanning the tree line. Both bulls moved simultaneously, pressing closer to Lily, their massive bodies forming a wall of muscle and horn around her. "What's wrong, boys?" Lily asked, confused by their sudden change in behavior. She'd never seen them act like this before. The jaguar made its move. With terrifying speed, it exploded from the scrub, its powerful legs propelling it toward the small group. The cat was a blur of spotted gold and black, its jaws open, revealing teeth designed to crush skulls and snap spines. Shadow reacted first. The dark bull charged forward with a bellow that shook the air, meeting the jaguar's attack head-on. The collision was spectacular and violent. Shadow's horns caught the cat mid-leap, one horn grazing the jaguar's ribs and sending it tumbling sideways into the dust. The jaguar was up in an instant, hissing and spitting. It had never encountered prey that fought back like this. But hunger overrode caution. The big cat circled, looking for an opening, its eyes fixed on the small human behind the two bulls. Lily screamed, finally understanding the danger. She'd never seen a big cat before, but every instinct in her 5-year-old body told her this was something terrible, something that wanted to hurt her. "Daddy! Mummy!" she shrieked, her voice carrying across the paddocks. Ghost positioned himself directly over Lily, his massive body creating a shelter. The little girl pressed herself against his front legs, trembling, tears streaming down her face. The jaguar feinted left, then darted right, trying to get around Shadow, but the bull was ready. Despite his size, Shadow moved with surprising agility, cutting off the jaguar's path. His horns swept through the air in a deadly arc, and this time they connected solidly with the cat's shoulder. The jaguar yowled in pain and fury. Blood matted its spotted fur where the horn had torn flesh. But instead of retreating, the injury only made the predator more desperate, more dangerous. Back at the homestead, about 400 meters away, Tom was working on the engine of his ute when he heard Lily's scream. His blood turned to ice. He knew that sound, pure terror. He grabbed the rifle that was always propped near the shed door and started running, his heart pounding. Rebecca heard it too. She burst out of the house, her face white with fear. "That's Lily!" she shouted. "Tom, where is she?" "The water tank!" Tom yelled back, already sprinting. "Call the flying doctor, just in case." The jaguar attacked again, this time with the cunning of a desperate predator. It went low, trying to slip under Shadow's guard and reach the soft throat of the white bull that stood over the child. Shadow saw the move and countered, lowering his own head to block, but the jaguar's claws raked across his face, opening 3 deep gashes near his left eye. Shadow bellowed in pain, blood streaming down his face, but he didn't back down. He couldn't. Lily was behind him, and every instinct in his body told him to protect the small human who'd spent countless hours patting his nose, feeding him treats, and falling asleep against his side in the afternoon sun. The jaguar pressed its advantage, sensing weakness. It launched itself at Shadow's exposed flank, claws extended, jaws aiming for the bull's throat. But Ghost was ready. The white bull charged from his position over Lily, hitting the jaguar with the force of a freight train. The impact sent the big cat flying 3 meters through the air. It landed hard. The wind knocked from its lungs, but its survival instincts were fierce. Rolling to its feet, the jaguar's eyes blazed with fury and frustration. These weren't normal cattle. These were warriors. Lily huddled on the ground where Ghost had left her, her small body shaking with sobs. She could see Shadow's blood dripping onto the red dirt, could hear the terrifying sounds of the battle, the jaguar's snarls, the bull's bellows, the sound of horns and claws meeting flesh. "Ghost! Shadow!" she cried out, her voice breaking. "Please don't die." Tom was running faster than he'd ever run in his life, the rifle bouncing against his shoulder. He could see the dust cloud in the distance, could hear the sounds of combat. His lungs burned, his legs screamed in protest, but he pushed harder. His daughter needed him. The jaguar changed tactics. It had learned that direct attacks on the bulls were costly. Instead, it began to circle, moving with the fluid grace of a born predator, looking for any gap, any moment of inattention that would let it reach the child. Ghost and Shadow moved in perfect coordination, a dance they'd never rehearsed but somehow knew instinctively. When the jaguar moved left, Shadow was there. When it feinted right, Ghost blocked. They created a living fortress around Lily, impenetrable and unwavering, but they were paying a price. Both bulls bore wounds now, deep scratches across their faces and shoulders, blood matting their hides. Shadow's left eye was swelling shut from the earlier strike. Ghost had a gash along his ribs where the jaguar's claws had found purchase during the last exchange. The jaguar sensed their weakening. It could smell the blood, could see the way Shadow's movements were becoming slower, less precise. The big cat's tactical mind calculated odds and opportunities. Just a few more attacks, a few more wounds, and the bulls would be too weak to defend effectively. It struck again, this time targeting Shadow's already injured face. The bull tried to turn away, but he was a fraction too slow. The jaguar's claws raked across his muzzle, opening terrible wounds. Shadow's bellow of pain was heartbreaking, a sound of pure agony. "No, leave him alone!" Lily screamed, though she knew the animal couldn't understand her words. Ghost responded to Shadow's cry with a rage that seemed almost human. The white bull charged with such force that the ground trembled. His horns caught the jaguar squarely in the side, lifting the 100-kilogram cat completely off the ground and throwing it 5 meters away. The jaguar hit the earth hard, and for the first time, it showed signs of serious damage. It struggled to its feet, one of its front legs now favoring the other, ribs possibly broken from the impact. But hunger and desperation still drove it forward. Tom was close now, close enough to see the scene. His heart nearly stopped. The jaguar was circling his daughter, who was crouched on the ground, while Ghost and Shadow, both bleeding heavily, stood between the predator and the child. He raised the rifle, but the animals were moving too fast, too close together. He couldn't risk the shot hitting one of the bulls or, God forbid, Lily. "Lily, stay down! Don't move!" he shouted. The little girl heard her father's voice and felt a surge of hope. Daddy was coming. Daddy would save them. But the jaguar heard it too, and the sound of the approaching human triggered a response in the predator's brain. This was its last chance. If the human arrived, its opportunity would be gone. It had to act now. The big cat gathered itself for one final desperate attack. This time it wouldn't go for the bulls first. It would use every ounce of speed and cunning to go straight for the child, accepting whatever damage the bulls could inflict in the process. Kill the prey, then escape. That was the plan. Shadow sensed the change in the jaguar's demeanor. He could see it in the way the cat's muscles bunched, in the focus of its golden eyes. He knew what was coming. The jaguar exploded forward with blinding speed, a golden streak of fur and fury. It went low and fast, trying to slip between the two bulls, its jaws open, aimed at the small figure huddled on the ground just 4 meters away. Shadow didn't hesitate. He threw his massive body sideways, directly into the jaguar's path. The collision was catastrophic. The jaguar's jaws clamped down on Shadow's throat, its powerful bite designed to crush windpipes and sever arteries. At the same time, Shadow's momentum carried both animals tumbling across the ground. "Shadow!" Lily screamed. Ghost charged in, his horns finding the jaguar's exposed belly. With a mighty toss of his head, he ripped the cat free from Shadow's throat and flung it away. The jaguar landed in a heap, badly wounded now, its belly torn, blood pooling beneath it. But the damage was done. Shadow lay on his side, blood pouring from the terrible wound in his throat. His breathing was labored, bubbling with blood. The dark bull's eyes found Lily, and in them was no fear, no regret, only peace. Tom finally had a clear shot. The jaguar was on the ground, wounded but still dangerous, separated from the bulls by several meters. He raised the rifle, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins, and fired. The shot echoed across the paddock like thunder. The bullet struck the jaguar in the chest, and the big cat convulsed once before going still. Tom didn't wait to confirm the kill. He was already running toward his daughter, the rifle still ready in case the predator had any fight left in it. Lily, are you hurt?" He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands frantically checking for injuries. The little girl was covered in dust and tears, but miraculously she had no wounds. The bulls had succeeded in their mission. Not a single scratch marked her small body. "Daddy!" she sobbed, throwing her arms around his neck. "Shadow's hurt. Ghost is bleeding. You have to help them." Tom's relief at finding his daughter unharmed was immediately replaced by heartbreak as he looked at the two bulls. Shadow was clearly dying. The wound in his throat was catastrophic, and blood pooled around his massive body. His breathing was shallow and irregular, each breath a struggle. Ghost stood over his fallen companion, blood dripping from multiple wounds on his face and body. The white bull's eyes were locked on Shadow, and he made a sound Tom had never heard from a bull before. A low, mournful cry that sounded almost like grief. Rebecca arrived moments later, having sprinted across the paddocks in her house slippers. She scooped Lily into her arms, holding her daughter tight while her eyes took in the scene. The dead jaguar, Shadow dying on the ground, Ghost standing vigil. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Tom, Shadow." "Ugh, I know." Tom's voice was thick with emotion. He approached the dark bull slowly, kneeling beside him. Shadow's eyes tracked his movement, and the bull made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. Tom placed his hand on Shadow's massive head, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You saved her, mate. You saved our little girl. You're a bloody hero. You are." Shadow's breathing was getting weaker. Each breath was a ragged gasp, blood bubbling from his nose and mouth. Lily pulled away from her mother and crawled over to the dying bull, ignoring Rebecca's attempts to hold her back. "Shadow, no! You can't die!" The little girl pressed her face against the bull's nose, her tears mixing with his blood. "Please don't leave me. I love you so much." The bull's dark eyes focused on her face one last time. His massive body shuddered, and then, with what seemed like a tremendous effort, he lifted his head just enough to gently nuzzle Lily's cheek. It was a gesture of love, of goodbye, of telling her it was okay. Then Shadow's head lowered back to the ground, his eyes glazed over, and he was gone. Lily's wail of grief was a sound that would haunt Tom for the rest of his life. She threw herself across Shadow's still body, sobbing uncontrollably. Rebecca joined her, wrapping her arms around both her daughter and the bull who had given his life for them. Ghost bellowed, a long, mournful sound that echoed across the station. The white bull lowered his head and nudged Shadow's body, as if trying to wake him. When his companion didn't respond, Ghost raised his head to the darkening sky and bellowed again, a sound of pure anguish. Tom wiped his eyes and stood, walking over to Ghost. The white bull was still bleeding from multiple wounds, and Tom could see he was in pain. But Ghost didn't seem to care about his own injuries. His eyes were fixed on Shadow, his massive body trembling. "Come here, boy," Tom said softly, running his hands over Ghost's wounds. "Let me look at you. You're hurt pretty bad." Ghost allowed Tom to examine him, but his gaze never left Shadow's body. The depth of the bull's grief was palpable, heartbreaking. Tom pulled out his mobile phone and called the vet, Doc Sarah Mitchell, who serviced the remote stations in the region. She answered on the second ring. "Doc, it's Tom Anderson. I need you out here urgently. We had a jaguar attack. One bull's dead. The other's badly injured." "A jaguar? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. It went after my daughter. The bulls protected her, but Shadow didn't make it. Ghost's torn up pretty bad, and I don't know how much blood he's lost. I'm on my way. Keep him calm and try to stop any bleeding you can. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Tom ended the call and looked at his family. Rebecca was still holding Lily, who continued to sob against Shadow's body. Ghost stood like a statue, blood dripping from his wounds, refusing to leave his fallen friend. "Beck, take Lily inside. Get her cleaned up and into bed. I'll stay with Ghost until the doc arrives." Rebecca nodded, gently pulling Lily away from Shadow's body. The little girl fought against her mother's grip. "No, I won't leave him, I won't." "Lily, sweetheart." Tom knelt down beside his daughter. "Shadow gave everything to protect you. The best way to honor that is to be brave now, like he was brave. Go with your mum, get cleaned up. Tomorrow we'll have a proper funeral for him. We'll bury him in the spot by the river where he used to like to stand in the afternoons. Would he like that?" Lily sniffled, wiping her nose on her dusty sleeve. "He loved that spot. He used to let me sit on his back there while he drank." "Then that's where he'll rest. But right now, Ghost needs us to be strong for him. He's hurting, and he's sad, and he needs to know we're going to take care of him. Can you be strong for Ghost?" Lily looked over at the white bull, seeing for the first time how badly he was injured. Fresh tears filled her eyes, but she nodded. "I'll be strong, for Ghost and Shadow." Rebecca carried Lily toward the homestead, the little girl looking back over her mother's shoulder at the scene, her father kneeling beside Ghost, Shadow's body in the dust, the dead jaguar a few meters away. Tom stayed with Ghost as darkness fell over the station. He'd fetched clean water and cloths, doing his best to clean and dress the worst of the bull's wounds while they waited for Doc Mitchell. Ghost stood perfectly still throughout the process, though Tom knew the cleaning must have hurt terribly. The white bull kept turning his head toward Shadow's body, making soft sounds that broke Tom's heart. He'd worked with cattle his entire life, and he'd always known they were intelligent, emotional creatures. But he'd never witnessed grief like this before. Ghost was mourning, as truly and deeply as any human would. "I know, mate," Tom said quietly, running his hand along Ghost's neck. "I know you miss him. He was your brother, wasn't he? Your best mate. He died a hero's death, protecting our little girl. We'll never forget what you both did today." Ghost turned his massive head and looked at Tom with those dark, intelligent eyes. There was something in that gaze, an understanding, an acknowledgement. The bull seemed to know Tom was trying to help, trying to ease his pain. Doc Mitchell arrived in her battered Land Cruiser exactly 42 minutes after Tom's call. She jumped out with her medical kit and a portable spotlight, taking in the scene with professional efficiency. The dead jaguar, the fallen bull, the wounded Ghost covered in makeshift bandages. Bloody hell, Tom. When you said jaguar, I thought you'd been out in the sun too long. Where did it come from? No idea. Maybe escaped from a private zoo somewhere. Maybe been living wild for years. Does it matter now? I suppose not. She approached Ghost carefully, speaking in soft, soothing tones. "Easy there, big fella. I'm here to help. Let's have a look at you." Over the next 2 hours, Doc Mitchell worked methodically, cleaning Ghost's wounds properly, stitching the worst lacerations, administering antibiotics and pain medication. The bull was remarkably patient, only flinching occasionally when she had to probe a particularly deep wound. "He's lost a fair bit of blood, but he's strong. The wounds will heal, though he'll have some impressive scars." She stepped back, wiping her hands. "Physically, he'll recover. But Tom, I'm more worried about his mental state. Bulls can form incredibly strong bonds. Losing Shadow like this, he might go into decline." "What do you mean?" "I've seen it before with bonded animals. One dies and the other loses the will to live. Stops eating, becomes lethargic, just gives up. You'll need to watch him closely. Keep him engaged, keep Lily around him if possible. That little girl might be the only reason he has to keep going." After Doc Mitchell left, Tom sat on an upturned bucket beside Ghost, both of them keeping vigil over Shadow's body. The night sky was brilliant with stars, the Milky Way stretching across the heavens like a river of light. It was quiet except for the distant sounds of the station, cattle lowing, the wind in the trees, the occasional cry of a night bird. "You know, Ghost," Tom spoke into the darkness, "my grandfather used to say that animals who die protecting others get special treatment in whatever comes after. He reckoned they were rewarded for their sacrifice with endless green pastures and cool water. I like to think Shadow's there now. No pain, no fear, just peace." Ghost made a low sound, almost like a sigh. The next morning, Tom used the station's excavator to dig a grave at the spot by the river where Shadow had loved to stand. He worked carefully, respectfully, making it deep and proper. When it was ready, several of the station hands came to help move Shadow's body. It took all of them and the tractor, but they managed to lower the fallen bull into his final resting place with dignity. Lily insisted on being there for the burial. She was wearing her best dress, the one she saved for video calls with her grandparents, and she carried a bunch of wildflowers she'd picked that morning. "Can I say something?" she asked quietly. "Of course, sweetheart," Tom replied. Lily stepped to the edge of the grave, looking down at Shadow's body wrapped in a tarpaulin. "Shadow, you were my best friend. You always protected me. You let me climb on your back and fall asleep against you. You never got mad when I pulled your tail by accident. And yesterday, you saved my life." Her voice wavered, but she pushed on. "I'll never forget you. Ever. And I promise I'll take really good care of Ghost, because I know you'd want me to." She tossed the wildflowers into the grave, and Rebecca pulled her close as tears streamed down the little girl's face. Tom said a few words, then nodded to the station hands. They began filling in the grave while the family stood watching. Ghost stood beside Lily, and when she reached up to hold his massive neck, the bull lowered his head and gently rested it against her shoulder. Over the following weeks, Ghost's physical wounds healed well. The scars remained, long white lines across his face and body, badges of honor from his battle. But Doc Mitchell's prediction about his mental state proved accurate. The white bull became withdrawn, spending hours standing by Shadow's grave, barely eating, showing no interest in the rest of the herd. Tom tried everything. He brought Ghost's favorite treats, spent hours talking to him, even tried introducing him to other bulls. Nothing worked. Ghost was fading, slowly but surely, giving up on life. It was Lily who finally reached him. One afternoon, she walked out to the river where Ghost stood by Shadow's grave. She'd brought a book and her stuffed kangaroo, and she simply sat down beside the white bull and began to read aloud. "Shadow would want you to be happy," she said during a pause in her reading. "He died so I could live, but he also died so you could keep protecting me. If you give up and die, then his sacrifice was for nothing. I need you, Ghost. I need you so much." Ghost turned his head and looked at the small girl. Something in her words, or perhaps the raw need in her voice, seemed to penetrate the fog of his grief. Slowly, Ghost lowered himself to the ground beside Lily. She immediately curled up against his massive side, just as she used to do when Shadow was alive. They stayed like that for over an hour, the bereaved bull and the little girl he'd helped save, finding comfort in each other. From that day forward, Ghost began to heal emotionally as well as physically. He started eating again, rejoining the herd, taking an interest in life. But every morning and every evening, he would stand by Shadow's grave for a few minutes, as if paying his respects to his fallen brother. Lily continued her daily visits to Ghost, reading to him, telling him about her day, helping brush his coat. The bond between them deepened into something extraordinary. Ghost became even more protective of her than before, if that was possible, never letting her out of his sight when she was outside. Tom built a memorial beside Shadow's grave, a simple stone marker with an inscription that read, "Shadow, loyal guardian, true hero, forever remembered." Lily planted flowers around it that bloomed bright red each spring. The story of the two bulls who fought a jaguar to protect a 5-year-old girl spread throughout the territory and beyond. News outlets ran the story, and letters poured in from around Australia and even from overseas. People sent donations to help with Ghost's medical bills, gifts for Lily, and countless messages of admiration for Shadow's sacrifice. But for Tom, Rebecca, and especially Lily, it was never about the fame or attention. It was about honoring the extraordinary courage of two remarkable animals who had proven that love and loyalty know no boundaries between species. Years later, when Lily was grown with children of her own, she would bring them to the station to meet Ghost, who lived to the remarkable age of 18. She would tell them the story of the day Shadow gave his life, and Ghost nearly did the same, all to protect a little girl who loved them. And when Ghost finally passed away peacefully in his sleep, they buried him beside Shadow, reuniting the two brothers who had stood together against impossible odds. The memorial stone was updated to include both their names, and the inscription changed to read, "Ghost and Shadow, brothers in life, heroes in death, forever together." The sacrifice of two bulls had saved one little girl, but the story of their courage and love would inspire thousands for generations to come.